absolutely. All right, so we're going to talk about exercising your identity theft options today here. Let me get started here, skip right along. So I'd like to start with this one, and which is how many people are falling victim to identity theft each year? And so as of 2020, the answer is 13.1 million victims. So it's around 35,890 people per day are becoming victim of identity theft. Some of that is very minor, but I just wanted to let you know so that we can discuss kind of how to prevent this and what to do if maybe it's already happened. So let's start out with kind of what can they do? What can the thieves do with your information? So a lot of what they want to do is more financial based. So they can open new accounts. They can authorize electronic payments. This one's a bit tougher, but maybe they could file a tax return in your name to try and get your refund. Even tougher than that for them, declaring bankruptcy in your name. Or maybe they give your name when they're arrested, or they're using your social security number to work somewhere where they otherwise couldn't work, just as some examples. And so let's talk about how they do it. So ID thieves will impersonate you by calling a credit card issuer and maybe asking them to do a mailing address change. And then what they'll do is they'll maybe run up charges, and you won't know because if you're not using something like electronic statements or online banking, you may not know because the bills are being sent to another address. And so they'll also use your information to maybe open a new credit card account, and then those unpaid charges will eventually show up on your credit report because, again, maybe the mail is being diverted, or they can open a phone or wireless service in your name, or they can maybe start writing bad checks on the account if they're able to break into your mailbox and take a checkbook as an example. Then that's when the writing bad checks can happen there. And then buying a car and having title and everything in your name is kind of another thing of how they do it. And so what they're after is your name, date of birth, social security number if they can get it, but obviously that one's a little harder for them. I don't know if you've noticed, but lately a lot of mail that comes in, instead of having your full social, it'll just have like the last 4 digits with stars. And so that's a change that was done because there was a lot of mail issues. And we'll cover the mailing system a lot throughout this presentation, and some ways to kind of change things so that your biggest point of weakness isn't like the mail. And that way, if somebody does break into your mailbox, then they won't be able to actually steal your identity with some of the tips that we'll cover. So let's talk about here that how you know when your information's been stolen. So if you're using online banking or electronic statements and you're seeing unauthorized charges, then you'll know at that point. Or if you're keeping track of your credit, maybe you're using our Savvy Money program here at the credit union, or you have your Credit Karma linked up to send notifications to your email. So if your credit rating takes a major dip because of delinquencies of things that you didn't have any knowledge about, then you'll know it at that point. And so it can be nice to have something like that where it's sending these notifications out to you. Or if you're denied unemployment or credit or loans, at that point you're kind of tipped off like, hey, maybe it might be an identity theft issue. So let's discuss how they're going to get your personal information. So it could be physically stealing your wallet or purse, which could contain your ID, credit cards, and debit cards. They could be stealing your mail or rummaging through like the trash, or maybe they're phishing through email by posing as a landlord or an employer. If they've gotten that far where they know your landlord or employer's name and things like that, we like to call that spear phishing, which means that they're phishing you with an email with really specific information about people that you know. And so it's a little bit more challenging to say, hey, you know, this is a phishing attempt, because they're using these real names and everything, right? And so those are some of the ways that they get access to the information. And so we like to live by shred, read, keep. All a thief needs is your name, address, and social to start doing damage. So if you don't already have one, get a paper shredder, or use the one at work if you're able to, and use it for any mail that you just to dispose of and that contains sensitive information. There's also a lot of shredding drives in the community. And so I've seen where the organizer of the event will pay for like a truck to come out from one of these data security companies, and they'll have shredders set up so that you can shred all your information. So those are good to use if you don't have your own shredder. And then, so when it comes to your account and credit card statements, if you prefer mailed statements over e-statements, then I'd recommend setting up alerts on the US Postal Service. You can create an account there, and what it'll do is it'll send you pictures of the mail that's incoming, and you'll get an email. When you open the email, it'll say, these are the letters and packages that are incoming, and you can see pictures of it. So if you see a picture that shows your bank or credit union, then just, try to get that as soon as possible to kind of limit your risks there. Alternatively, just switching to electronic statements, and that goes for loans, mortgages, credit cards, checking accounts. If you're comfortable with online banking and e-statements, then switching to that is much better for protecting your information, because a lot of times the mailbox is your weakest link. And so let's discuss more about protecting your information here. So if you photocopy both sides of your driver's license and credit and debit and health insurance cards, and maybe any other items that you carry, and if you keep these copies in a safe place, you'll have the phone numbers that you need in case your wallet or purse is stolen and these cards are taken from you, right? Because you'll have all the phone numbers on the back of those photocopied ones. So that's a big one that I've started doing. And then trying to just limit the number of things that you're taking out. I do normally take more than one card, because I've had it where, my card will get declined or something. And so I'll normally take a few cards, but I don't take like everything that I have, and I don't keep my social security number or anything in my wallet. So just a couple of tips on protecting your information there. And then when it comes to phone, try not to provide or confirm personal information to a telephone solicitor unless you're the one that called. If you know who you're calling and the number's right and everything, then that's okay. But if they're calling you, then that's usually not, or that could be a phishing attempt. And so let's talk about passwords real quick here. So a couple of points on passwords is trying to choose something that's not predictable. And for the PIN number as well, usually it won't let you do like 1, 2, 3, 4. But if it does, then I'd recommend still not doing that. Just pick something that isn't predictable and that you can remember. When it comes to passwords, if you can, instead of picking a password, if you can pick a passphrase, that's a lot better. So like 4 random words and then a few numbers and a symbol is a lot better than the name of your dog, 4 numbers and a symbol, as an example, right? Because a passphrase of 4 random words is super, super strong. Or alternatively, even better than any of this is to use a online password protector like LastPass. So I don't know, maybe in the Q&A section, somebody will have to let me know if you've used something like this, but I've started using LastPass. And what it is, it allows me to create one password, which is like a master password. And then I don't have to worry about any of my other passwords. It does it all for me, and it creates very, very secure long passphrases. And so that's a nice thing that I've started using, which I feel like has really helped me to prevent identity theft even more. And then if you are uncomfortable using online banking, what I would recommend is reaching out to your financial institution and asking them if you can enable 2-factor authentication. And that goes for not just banks and credit unions, but like any of your online accounts that maybe you're not as comfortable with the security level, like your email. If you can enable 2-factor authentication, it will send a one-time code to either your cell phone as like a text message, or you can do like an email. And what that does is, for somebody to hijack your account, they not only need your username and password, they also need physical possession of your cell phone or access to your email. And so, depending on which 2-factor authentication. And so it makes accounts nearly unhackable. To be honest, I have had accounts hacked that were not using 2-factor authentication. For instance, my Hotmail was hacked like 10 years ago, and I actually never recovered that one. But since I started using 2-factor authentication for everything, I've never had any issues since that day. So that's something I would recommend if you are uncomfortable with, online banking and things like that. So let's get into e-statements here, electronic statements. In my opinion, they're the safest way to receive your statement, especially if you are using that 2-factor authentication we talked about, where the account becomes nearly unhackable, and it'd be so hard to get in. I don't like to talk about like extreme scenarios, but the scenario where maybe a hacker could get in would be like a kidnap scenario, right? Because they would need physical possession of your cell phone and all your stuff. So yeah, so that's where e-statements become very, very nice, and it limits that weakest link of your mailbox if you don't have like a lock on it. And so it essentially solves a lot of what we already talked about today. It just simply switching to e-statements for your different things. And then let's talk about online bill pay here. It's a digital checkbook, and the payees are saved, and they can be linked directly to bill pay. So instead of writing checks and mailing checks out, this mails checks out for you. If it's like a landlord that you're trying to pay, then it'll mail it out. Or if it's like a small company, it'll mail out the check. But for most of your bills, like electric and gas and water and credit cards, it links electronically and then it pays it digitally, just like a check, but it takes anywhere from 1 to 2 business days instead of like the 5 to 7 business day mailing out. And so you can usually bill pay is managed all of it through the online banking. So you don't have to juggle like multiple passwords or leaving your mail vulnerable in the mailbox when you're using online bill pay, because all of it is all in one place. And so let's talk about what to do if you've already become a victim to identity theft. Right away, you'll want to notify your financial institution to contact you if there's any unusual activity on the account. And then depending on what happened, you might want to change your cards. Obviously, any cards that were part of this. Also, your passwords. It just kind of depends on what happened, but anything that was touched in this process, you'll want to change out. And then, of course, contact the police in the jurisdiction where the theft took place and keep that report copy for yourself as well. And call the postmaster if you think that any kind of mail fraud might have happened. And then call any creditors who opened accounts in your name. So, and to let them know, hey, this wasn't me that opened these things. So, please put a block on it, and they'll kind of let you know what to do from there. But you definitely want to contact them. And so here is where I like to talk about freezing your credit. So if I'm going to give you the phone numbers for the 3 credit bureaus. Those are on the identity theft handout. And I'll have a slide for that in a second here. But if you call the 3 credit bureaus to freeze your credit, you do have to call them individually. It allows you to create a PIN or password which blocks all activity on your credit, including from you. Like, it even stops you from being able to use your own credit to take out loans until the credit is unfrozen. So if you have TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, which I'm going to put up the handout here. So yeah, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. These are the numbers here. It's a little bit annoying because it also stops you from doing anything as well. So if you need to take out like a student loan or a credit card, then you have to use your go online to your account or call one of these numbers and use your PIN to unfreeze. And then after you're done applying for whatever you want, you have to go back and use your account or call again and to refreeze, right? But even though it's inconvenient, it completely negates a lot of identity theft that can happen to you. So it's probably your biggest line of defense that you can control without like paying for an identity theft protection service or something like that, right? Because everything we talked about today is free. There's nothing that we discussed today that costs any money. And so this is I put up the annual credit report and the opt-out website. And then once per year at this annual credit report, you can get your report at the 3 bureaus. And I would definitely do that once per year and just check the names that are being reported, like we discussed in the last presentation. Check if there's strange names, strange addresses, strange phone numbers, then you can let the credit bureaus know about that. And at that point, you should definitely consider freezing your credit as well. And let me go to the next slide here.
Okay, so these are the numbers again for the bureaus. And I wanted to say that what if you're disputing anything on your credit, you can do it online at the annualcreditreport.com, and you can do the online dispute. But with any dispute that you do, I'd recommend sending a physical letter, which is kind of funny because we just spent this entire presentation talking about avoiding mail, and here I am telling you to send a letter. But obviously the mail system is critical. We use it every day for a lot of different things. And this is one of those, whenever you're dealing with these credit bureaus, I definitely recommend following up by mail in addition to anything else you're doing, like phone or anything like that, because it leaves a kind of a trace, so that if they don't do what you wanted them to do, then at least you have on record that, hey, I sent in this mail. And so at that point, once they get the mail, they'll have to get it done legally. So you have more of that ground to stand on. So I think at this point, let me cover, we're going to jump into the Q&A soon here. Let me just cover a little bit from this handout. So a couple of tips are never leaving maintenance or contract workers alone in your home. Like we discussed before, that's kind of one of the methods that identity thieves can, maybe they're not breaking into your home, but maybe they're already in your home, right? And so just kind of staying on top of these things can definitely help to prevent identity theft. Checking the financial statements each month, of course, either online or the mailed ones, depending on your preference for unauthorized transactions. If you do find that you're doing mailed statements and a month goes by and your statement hasn't come in yet, that's a red flag. Like we talked about, somebody could be diverting your mail. And then, limiting what goes in and out of your mailbox. And giving out personal information over the phone. If you are the one making the call again, then then you know who you're speaking to. But if you're being called and they're asking for a lot of weird personal info, then just watch out for that. And then enhancing security of your computer. This includes keeping it updated. So if you keep on getting bugged about, hey, there's a new version, then it's usually a good idea to just get that updated to the latest version, since a lot of the security gaps are usually installed during those updates for your computer. And so I am going to switch back to the presentation and start the Q&A session here.